Perhaps because no one has ever done that in their entire life, so the protagonist's attitude spoke volumes. Just by looking at martial artist No. 23, one could understand the meaning. This scene was seen through by Tian Mu sect. I was gone for just a moment and already saw something terrible. Ta Han Shu is always arrogant, the type to bully others. Generally speaking, he is loyal to someone, so he's afraid and dare not speak up because nowadays, all the young masters are too terrifying. Tian Pham spoke on behalf of his younger brothers. What kind of creature are you to dare call someone else's subordinate a bug? Are you perhaps the real bug following someone else's tail? Upon hearing these words, it couldn't respond. Why suddenly stammer and seem scared? Ta Han gritted his teeth in frustration and felt humiliated. He activated his internal energy, punched fiercely, trying to hit Tian Pham, but Tian Pham didn't care. He dodged the blow and countered, making him retreat, feeling his whole body weak. Compared to the simulation, he felt too weak and vulnerable. Even now, he sat quietly, watching Seventh Young Master celebrate quietly because he didn't choose the wrong person. After defeating his younger brothers, it was his senior brother's turn. They wanted to challenge Tian Pham again. Tian Mu sect didn't dare anymore, it just muttered curses. Having a useless subordinate, nothing would change. Many people were puzzled, wondering if Seventh Young Master's Patma Tom wasn't frightening enough. Seeing this, a new wind will blow into the heavenly demon sect. Time passed, and a week later, the second stage of the competition took place. Lam Bin encouraged his disciples vigorously. I've taught you everything you need to know. Remember, the rest depends on you. All will begin to draw lots, and 4 groups will be chosen to compete with each other. Team leaders from groups 1 to 4 stepped forward. The Grand Elders shouted loudly, and the heads of each group stepped forward to draw lots. Many noticed that Tian Mu sect no longer represented Group 8. Li Ho Min was very surprised at this development. Tian Pham is actually the representative for Group 8. Besides him, there is also his junior sister, Tian Vian Lu, the leader of another group. The little one was resentful because he knew immediately that Tian Mu sect had failed. It recalled yesterday's training session. After the training ended, the 7th Young Master left to contemplate, but it continued training with the group. Why were these stupid pigs not thinking? All strategies will be exposed. Because it was too bored, the little one left to focus on training alone. Tian Vian Lu appeared from behind with an interesting expression upon seeing her cousin. Tian Mu sect, not understanding why, but since they never liked each other, she didn't care. Seeing this, the little one ran to intercept, feeling too hot-eyed, so Tian Mu sect had to speak up. What are you playing at? Say what you want. Is it because you're worried that you're showing this attitude? Tian Vian Lu replied, do you think the Fatma sect are all fools? Why did you suddenly fall silent? Finally, it stopped and tried to express its thoughts. Though not explicitly stated, it pulled its collar up, showing everyone that Tian Mu sect had been injured physically. Now, Tian Vian Lu said she was attacked unexpectedly yesterday evening during meditation. You were attacked unexpectedly, or is it a joke from someone not afraid of death? That's not clear because he was wearing a mask. Tian Mu sect believed that it was just careless, so its junior sister was ambushed. Don't believe my words easily because I've never been careless. The 7th Young Master thought he was cared for, so he was very happy. But specifically, I'm here because the 2 of us will face each other in the group competition. Do you remember 2 days ago when we were informed that we were divided into 4 groups to compete against each other? Why did it have to be so troublesome to split into 4 groups? I don't understand what you're trying to say. So, does it have anything to do with me? Tian Vian Lu was annoyed that Tian Mu sect didn't understand anything. The splitting into 4 groups was already public, so each group could guess who their opponent was. So your idea is that this information was deliberately made public in advance, right? You're not stupid either. Without the team leader, maintaining the team would be very difficult. Nonetheless, absolutely do not neglect tomorrow's exam. Don't practice martial arts alone. It's very dangerous. The successor, as the junior martial arts leader, didn't pass phase 2 and got expelled. People laugh at him and scorn him. After speaking, he leaves without saying goodbye. Gayat doesn't care. She just doesn't know who played sneaky tricks behind someone's back. Now, she's figuring out when and where to always bring her younger siblings with her for safety. It seems like that mysterious person observed everything about these two siblings. That night, the male protagonist searches for a secluded place to practice. After a while, Nano reminds him it's time to return to the dorm for the virtual victory celebration. Guyet's skills today are only a few parts, but her mastery of techniques has increased as expected. It is estimated that she will succeed in 2 to 3 days. These are the numbers Nano predicted for the 106 matches played. Thinking about this, he feels reassured and returns to the dorm immediately. He immediately runs back to avoid Lambin checking on him. He hears some punches and kicks nearby and stops to observe. The noises get closer and he figures out the direction. The male protagonist runs there to see what's happening. Due to the darkness, it's hard to see who is fighting whom. Guyet seems to be fighting with someone wearing a mask. The battle seems to be tilting towards the mysterious person, who seems to be planning to attack Guyet directly. Guyet struggles to avoid fatal sword strikes and eventually runs away to another place to escape. Pham observes the abnormal actions of the masked person and wonders who they are and what their purpose is. Guyet is exhausted and one of her legs is injured due to excessive jumping. The masked person notices her vulnerability and tries to strike her. Despite their animosity, the male protagonist intervenes to help the masked person, who recognizes the arrival of a stranger and abandons their goal to attack Pham. Pham notices the vulnerability and lands a hit on them. The masked person retreats, and Pham quietly observes, unsure of their intentions. Pham decides not to pursue them to avoid danger. Now he turns to Guyet to ask about her condition. Despite being cursed at, Pham still takes care of her and her troublesome companions. When they return to the dorm, everyone is surprised. Despite being scolded, Pham still takes care of Guyet and her troublesome companions. When they return to the dorm, everyone is surprised. However, Guyet agrees to follow Pham. Pham explains later and reminds everyone to take the victim for a medical checkup. Upon examination, Guyet's injuries aren't severe. Pham checks Tahuan's wound and finds it's not dangerous after cleaning and bandaging it. Then, they notice Guyet's injuries, and Pham rushes to check on her. Guyet seems pale and weak from losing too much blood. Pham calls for medical assistance. Lambin arrives and takes care of Guyet. Temporarily, everything seems settled. Pham asks about the seriousness of Guyet's injuries. Jiao Dao remains silent for a while and diagnoses that it will take some time for Guyet to recover. Guyet has to use a wheelchair. Upon hearing this, some of them feel scared because they can't afford to miss the team leader in tomorrow's competition. Lambin directly applies acupuncture to Guyet. He takes Guyet to see Bok Trong Min. Pham takes care of Tahan. When he sees someone rushing in, he calls out and finds out that not only the 4th martial artist but also the 80th martial artist has head injuries. He knows the situation and plans to take them to the infirmary. When he brings them here, why does he ignore them? In fact, Jiao Dao knows about this incident, so the exam is no longer important. He just wants to say that. Just take them here and quickly return. Do you know that martial artists are not allowed to leave the dormitory without permission? Back in the room, Pham contemplates. He connects everything together. The intention of the masked person is not just to target Team 4, but it seems to be a loophole in the exam. It turns out that there are hidden motives in the exam. The important thing here is that they want to target the team leader. By doing so, they can easily defeat opponents in the upcoming competition. Pham recalls the day when all the teams were drawn. He understands why Lai Ho Min divided the teams by drawing lots in advance. This has led to the current situation. It turns out that this is the supernatural religion. They don't need to follow the rules. They just need to achieve their goals. Many members of the team are feeling discouraged. Pham consoles them, asking since when did the team leader's injury make them so sad that they can't bear it. Some immediately deny this story, saying who can't bear it. If that's the case, then elect a new team leader to quickly train and cannot stand with folded arms like this. Who could replace this trained person to command? Only Thin Muttengaik Gui. These words seem to hit the nail on the head of your doubts, don't they? It's not that there's no one, right? Isn't it the talented 7th son of our group who is here? Why did everyone fall silent after he declared it? Because everyone knows Ho Bong is now a disciple of Thin Pham. But because of the chaotic situation, they didn't know what to do. Some raised their hands in support of the proposal, Many others seemed disapproving but consented because they would decide later. So, after passing through the second phase, the votes for the team leader of the main team reached 100, all agreeing for him to become the leader of Team 8. The main guy would have to temporarily train and think of a plan for tomorrow's match. He waited until late at night, taking advantage of everyone sleeping. Each quietly got up, changed into their clothes swiftly to not disturb anyone's sleep. The door was closed, and Nano was requested to activate the system's dark vision mode for the owner, Thin Pham, to see what he was up to. He moved swiftly around the dormitory. After several rounds, he arrived at the room of Team 7. Finally, he had to sneak in here again. Nano had scanned all the members of this team. There were 20 people sleeping. Nano checked for any attackers against that Mutangayat, but found no one matching the injuries on him. It seemed they didn't care anymore. Thin Pham used acupuncture to render them all unconscious and went straight to the bed of the Team 7 leader. He was startled awake to see a stranger, and immediately Thin Pham subdued him with acupuncture, causing him to faint. Indeed, this guy was too sensitive. Thin Pham took out a silver needle from his pocket, a trick he often used to make movement difficult for some time. This strategy made it easier for Team 8 to compete. The next goal was the leader of Team 5, Thin Vin Liu, but considering the masked person's physique, it couldn't be him. So, the attacker against Thin Mutangayat could only be from Team 6. Inside, there were 16 people sleeping. Something didn't seem right. Team 6 had 20 members, and on the second floor, there were 3 women. So where was the other one? Nano scanned all faces but found no matches. If she was on the ground floor, Thin Pham should have encountered her earlier. He had to remain silent and calculate. He understood that the actual doer didn't necessarily have to be the team leader. The next day was the second stage, the first match between Teams 1 and 3. Lai Ho Min, as a referee, noticed the representative of Team 8, meaning someone from the demon cult had been injured by someone. He understood the hidden agenda of the test. Indeed, the martial artists of the demon cult did not disappoint. After a while, all the team leaders finished drawing lots. It seemed everyone was well prepared for this exam. Hopefully, they would compete well. This statement from the elder leader was full of meaning, hinting at the return to prepare for further training. Thin Pham had to pay attention to a suspicious person. Their eyes felt too familiar, so he immediately requested Nano to scan for facial recognition. The system confirmed a 100% match with the matched person. He quickly identified the person behind all this. The next day, the exam's second stage began with the first match between Teams 1 and 3. The judges loudly called for the start. The martial artists shouted, creating an intimidating atmosphere, making the opponent hesitate. The Team 3 leader remained calm, observing everything. As the leader, he reminded others to move according to the formation. The fire captain was attentive, noticing that they were arranging themselves in the fire immortal formation. Quickly, the martial artists prepared their leaf armor, footsteps resonating as Team 1 formed a defense. The Team 3 leader continuously urged them not to stop, but many were already overwhelmed. It was not just about fighting, but also about shedding blood. The Team 3 leader saw some others being attacked and immediately reminded them to stay alert and stand up to fight. But as he finished speaking, he exposed a vulnerability and was struck down. So, this battle ended in a one-sided manner, with the dominance of the Heavenly Realm team. They secured victory decisively. Of course, Team 3 accepted their tragic defeat. Lai Ho Min felt quite bored as there was no challenge whatsoever. Next, Teams 2 and 4 also advanced to the next round. Following them was the match of Team 8. Upon observation, several members of his team seemed demoralized. If it continues like this, we'll lose without even fighting. I know changing the team leader has made you uneasy. I feel the same, but if we don't win now, we'll all be expelled from the demon cult. It's too early for that, so we must delve deeper. Let's turn our anger into cowardice. The intention of the team leader is to eliminate us from this competition. We cannot fall into his trap. We must unite to avoid failure. With that, he successfully boosted the morale of everyone. Lai Ho Min was pleased with the uplifted spirits, but he doubted whether this would ensure victory. He wanted to see if the Seventh Son's talent was exceptional or just overhyped. The essence of the match was dominance. Whoever overpowered their opponent would win. Thin Vin Liu, as the leader of Team 5, only desired to fight Thin Mutangayat. She felt that defeating Thin Pham would only make his life more miserable. Hence, she ordered an attack, prompting Nano to observe and analyze the situation. He initiated an enhancement of reality through tactical instructions and action commands. Thin Pham taunted the opponent, and Thin Vinh Lu immediately began to mobilize her team based on their prepared formation. Recognizing the opponent's strategy, she jumped out to calculate positions within the formation based on the leader's changes. Nano noticed the opponent's adjustments and advised the master to alter tactics. The leader of Team 5 realized this, questioning why they used Formation 3. If their internal energy wasn't profound enough, this strategy would be meaningless. Thin Pham responded confidently, stabilizing the spirits of his team members below. However, even if they matched internal energy with us, they won't withstand direct confrontation. Let's try using the first battle formation against their fish dragon formation. That way, we'll isolate them. As this battle unfolded, it seemed that Thin Pham was changing his team's formation rapidly, catching Thin Vinh Lu off guard. But it was too late. Her team had already adapted. The members of his group exchanged positions flexibly, learning from the battle's lessons. Don't panic. Counterattack left and right. Thin Pham quickly changed tactics, surprising the opponents, who couldn't respond in time. One of them warned about the fish dragon formation. Look ahead quickly, but once again, Thin Pham's swift changes left the Team 5 members confused. They didn't know what to do. The leader of Team 5 was perplexed, unable to think of anything. After a while, it seemed the match's pace had stabilized. Both sides awaited further orders. Thin Pham still had to wait for actions to proceed. On Thin Vinh Lu's side, it seemed the game was over. Isolated like this, how could she execute anything further? She realized that her earlier cries were just a distraction. Rewinding back to last night before sleeping, the main character reminded everyone that other teams would use numbers as in training formations. So, we'll take advantage of that. When I shout, change positions according to the formation, this is our strategy. Thin Vinh Lu now realized it was too late. She silently cursed Thin Pham for his cowardice. With the situation now too overwhelming, he ordered a siege on the Team 5 members inside, who appeared terrified, not knowing what to do. Their hesitant footsteps echoed as they slowly advanced, some already dropping their weapons and shields out of fear. The team leader turned back to scold them, asking why they were dropping their shields without permission. But regardless of what he said, no one listened to the order anymore, just thinking, it's over. The young master of the demon sect understood that if they lost now, they would be mocked greatly. The situation was no longer the same as before and became uncomfortable. She stared directly at her opponent, her eyes filled with anger and horror. Thin Pham, you truly are despicable. With that said, she charged forward alone, wanting to duel him. His sword emitted a powerful aura, and the protagonist also took the initiative, discarding his shield and gripping his weapons tightly with both hands. Internal energy surged from both sides as they clashed, and the woman was quickly injured, from her face to her body. Thin Pham smoothly applied his master's technique, discerning many vulnerabilities in Thin Vinh Lu's defense. Without hesitation, he launched his attack, and many members of her team were left speechless, including Lai Ho Min, who seemed somewhat puzzled by the gruesome scene. The woman's arm was severed, blood splattering everywhere. Now, feeling the pain, her gaze shifted from arrogance to fear. She screamed in agony, realizing she had lost her hand and couldn't hold her weapon anymore. She desperately retreated, leaving behind a trail of blood, while Thin Pham remained silent, displaying a cold demeanor. He knew he had broken through her technique, and more importantly, he had incapacitated her with just one move. Indeed, swordsmanship also has its limitations. With that, Team 8 emerged victorious, advancing to the next stage of the competition. Back with the team members, there were thunderous applause congratulating the team leader. Lai Ho Min admired the resemblance to the Grand Master's style, wondering what the drunken man had done to him. However, the leader believed it was only a part of their victory today, emphasizing the excellent tactics and strategy developed in just 20 days. Isn't that talent in itself? That dreamer took in disciples before the competition. It's really not okay at all. Many now realized Thin Pham's true talent, especially after the match with Team 5. As the battle between Teams 5 and 8 concluded, it was now the turn of Team 7 to step onto the field. The team leader, now slightly injured, was the one who took a blow to the face the night before after fighting Thin Muck and Guyot. He was furious not only because of that, but also because the other members were no better off, all due to Thin Phom's cunning tactics. Looking at that group, he smirked disdainfully. Team 6 was ecstatic, thanking someone for helping them weaken their opponents. They immediately launched an attack on the members of Team 7, who stood still, not knowing what to do in such a situation. The team leader, however, remained cold and stern, reminding them to be grateful for his help for the rest of their lives after today's events. He then rearranged their formation into a phalanx, knowing that without him, their formation would be useless. Ignoring all the insults, the leader of Team 7 remained silent, waiting for his chance. Putting all his strength into his arm, he swung his weapon fiercely at his opponent. The shield of Team 6's leader was knocked into the air, and immediately afterward, he struck down his opponent without hesitation, leaving him unable to react. With a bloody face, the opponent continued to rally the team members, who seemed to regain their momentum, charging forward like a stampede. However, as Team 7 lost their commander, they had to band together to withstand the onslaught, showing fear as they watched their leader about to die. Now it was a melee, not a match anymore. Even the judges above couldn't understand why the leader of Team 7 remained silent, not giving any orders because he knew his team had won. Overwhelming dominance. Moreover, his gaze kept shifting towards Thin Phom. In his heart, he silently vowed to deal with him. The protagonist didn't understand why he was so hated by him. After the conclusion of the second stage of the competition, the elders and leaders gathered to review and evaluate the performance of those eliminated. From Team 1 to Team 5, it seemed that many members of the high-level sects had been eliminated this time. Lai Ho Myth felt that dividing the competition by teams like this was somewhat unfair. If they followed the guidance when the demon cult was founded, there wouldn't be such fatigue. The political atmosphere seemed to anticipate opposition from the leaders of the high-level sects once the results were announced. Regardless, even though they were proficient in martial arts, they missed the opportunity to obtain the Ma Long Dan and examine the secret techniques. Those who advanced through this stage were probably gathering at the secret technique library now, right? Indeed, everything was just as Lai Ho Min had said. Everyone who won had come here. Glancing briefly at the library, he felt it was more magnificent than the Demon Sect's office during their time at the Bai Tavern. Other martial artists had already reached the first floor, so today they would probably ascend to the second floor. Sumong then reminded his disciples not to act foolishly, but to focus on continuing their cultivation. The sword techniques and the empty mind doctrine's irrational actions imply that the intent behind them must be the secret manual, right? Thanks to my master, I've been able to learn martial arts techniques from the 4th and 5th levels of the secret manual. Even if I can't enter the first level, I shouldn't regret it. After all, there's no way to compare with the martial arts skills of our sect's disciples. It may seem a bit disadvantaged compared to the others, but I'm confident because I have Nano. Just need to scan through the 1st and 2nd levels, then absorbing the knowledge would be like a breeze. Entering the 1st level for the first time. I've never seen so many books. With only 2 hours here, I must act quickly. Immediately, I ordered Nano to swiftly execute the 5 elemental sword techniques, which took only a few minutes to scan. Other manuals, if thin, took only a few tens of seconds to complete, not even halfway through the time, yet almost half the work was done. After a while, I paused and asked Nano about the time remaining for checking. There was only 1 hour left. In total, I've absorbed techniques from the sword, mind, Dao, field, and poison arts minus 55 techniques in all. Don't rush to transfer them into my mind just yet. It seems like they're just external bookshelves. After a quick glance, I plan to delve deeper inside for further study. Here, a giant stone tablet emerged, guarded by what seemed to be a hidden grandmaster. Why would they place this in the middle like this? Others began to pay attention to the martial artists of the Devil Sect. Their eyes swept over them for scrutiny, and then they spoke. This stone tablet was discovered by Master Tian Ma, the founder of our sect. After hearing this, I looked closer. The Guardian added that this stone tablet was engraved with precious jade and many inscriptions written by Master Tian Ma himself. Surprisingly handmade. I never expected that. Without internal strength, it would be difficult to carve letters onto the stone with a sword. The remaining jade was inscribed using internal strength. Usually, reading one book would take a while, so nobody noticed. You must have inherited the bloodline, that's why you discovered it. Lost in the secret manual, I nearly overlooked what the ancestors had written. There are many secret manuals like this one. Even in the past 20 years, since I've guarded this place, nobody has come to this stone tablet, not even the Thin family. Nonetheless, there's still plenty of time, so feel free to take your time. After hearing these words, the protagonist circled around to admire the backside of the tablet. There were many sword marks, seemingly concealing something. Immediately, I requested Nano to scan it once more. To analyze, it started adjusting the data, and it only took 5 seconds to complete. Turns out, these marks were caused by 2 objects, obviously difficult to understand without Nano's help. To investigate further, I activated the user's visual perception. Each sword mark had different strengths and angles, making it challenging to determine who made them. These are intentionally scratched on the pre-engraved sword marks. It could also be hiding something else. Nano, are these marks made by the 2 individuals who left the first marks, leaving only the first and last marks for identification? The system analyzed the specific marks of the first and last sword marks. The images were transmitted immediately to the protagonist's mind. He realized these weren't just random cuts. In fact, they displayed countless sword techniques. Now eager to investigate, but still lacking in skill, can Nano create a 3D image of these techniques? Before measuring the strength of the object leaving the marks, we need to know the hardness of the jade stone first. Upon reaching this point, the Guardian also spoke up. Haven't you read all the books yet? You've also seen behind the jade tablet, right? It seems quite chaotic. You feel regretful, don't you? There used to be rumors here about sword techniques containing the profound understanding of the founder, Tian Ma. I don't know who did it, but the back of the jade tablet has been destroyed. Perhaps someone wants to monopolize the master's ultimate skills. Indeed, the protagonist was curious about this. After a while, the Guardian left and allowed more thorough observation. Nano reported that the hardness of the jade tablet could be analyzed. By touching the entire surface with the palm of the hand, one could feel it directly. Immediately, the protagonist followed the system's instructions to begin the analysis. Based on the 10-level hardness scale of diamonds, this jade tablet's hardness exceeded level 7. Thin Fam couldn't understand who covered the sword marks with just one stroke. Nano continued to combine the sword marks and hardness to recreate the movements. However, after a while, there was no response from the other shadow. The system reported that there was no dialogue support, so without waiting for the owner's permission, it began to reproduce the actions. The images instantly demonstrated powerful sword techniques, leaving Thin Fam astonished. The movements were so fast that it was difficult to grasp. Thin Fam suspected this was a technique. Nano then analyzed the connection between the movements, confirming it was a standard martial art technique. Thin Fam couldn't believe it, as it took the master half a year to master it, and he still couldn't reach this level. Unexpectedly encountering this in the first floor reading room was beyond his expectations. Nano recorded the recent events and summarized them briefly. Those random sword strikes almost made me miss the treasure. Although it's unclear who did it, it's certain there was no malicious intent. Thanks to that, only I noticed it. If we meet by chance, I must express my gratitude. Having finished his thoughts, he respectfully left to copy other books. However, Nano had analyzed complex sword strikes and discovered 45 sword techniques related to those movements. These techniques were analyzed based on the time differences. It turned out it wasn't intentional concealment, it was all part of the technique. Nano quickly began to reproduce them in sequence. The first technique, then the second, and so on. Each successive technique was more perfect than the last. After a while, the process was completed. Thin Fam still didn't understand anything. He continued to ponder and came up with a few more ideas. Nano, can you make them fight each other? The system then initiated combat mode, and the images rushed into each other continuously. The protagonist remained silent, focusing on observing. There seemed to be some changes happening. Thin Fam gradually understood the significance of the unprocessed sword strikes, which were perfect in their own way. This wasn't simply to decipher the 45 strikes, it was to break the ultimate technique. Thinking of this, he rushed to ask the Guardian if only the first floor had this jade tablet. I only work here, so I'm not sure, but I've heard that each floor has one, so it's true that you've been fortunate. Thin Fam. Nano prepared to move to the second floor. On the second floor, it seemed that a few others were also engrossed in reading. The time here had changed slightly, being 3 hours instead of 2, but it was surprising to see another person. Huthin, from the Daoist sect, was also here. Other disciples, despite their lower martial arts skills, were not coming here to study diligently like him. Thin Pham realized he needed to be cautious with this person. After bypassing all the books, he approached the next jade tablet. Indeed, the back of it was filled with sword marks. Nano continued its work. Just as it did on the first floor, it discovered that these marks formed 24 techniques, with additional traces from another object, totaling 56 techniques. Thin Pham understood that to decipher these techniques, he needed to study the first floor jade tablet further. Although he wanted to investigate more, there were too many prying eyes around. With 4 techniques obtained, all he had to do was wait for Nano to transmit them into his body at the right opportunity. Nano considered reducing the number, fearing that the owner couldn't handle it, but was stopped by the group that rushed towards him at once. However, this didn't panic the main character. With a flick of his hand, he managed to hit a few of them, causing them to vanish in an instant. Was it because he had blocked all their first moves, or what? Just as he was feeling pleased, a few remaining ones aimed directly at him. As they leaped up to dodge, they collided with the ceiling, knocking themselves out. Nano immediately paused the actions of the shadows, causing them all to collapse to the ground, making him feel a headache because he had been too engrossed in training and forgotten about the cramped space. He also glanced up to see if there was any damage. Well, that's enough for now. Master will find out soon. Later, he had to go report the situation to create a record. He seemed very displeased because he had warned him carefully before. But what did he do in the end? It's really beyond me. My head hurts so much I want to die. I've warned you before, haven't I? If you cause any more trouble, you'll be banned from using this place altogether. So, he had to lead the martial artists to another location. The main character still didn't understand where he was being taken or whether he was being punished. Inside, he felt that this place was only half as good as the previous one, but the distance between the room doors was much greater. From now on, your kid should come here to train. If I let you continue training there, won't you end up breaking more rooms or what? It turns out this training room is reserved for martial artists who have passed the 4th examination, and whose eternal strength must reach its peak to stay here. Of course, you haven't passed that test yet, but your internal strength is probably enough. And considering the incidents you caused, I've reported to the higher-ups, and they've agreed to open the door for early training. Thin Pham was very curious why the master knew, but then he understood. Punching a hole in the wall over there means coming over here. That's why the hardness level of this thit stone is several times higher than that thit stone. Even if you exert all your strength, it's very difficult to puncture it. So don't worry, just focus on training. Indeed, the new room is much more spacious and suitable than the previous one. He continued his training, but it seems he no longer wants to fight with 10 holographic images. Nano is planning to create a shadow of Sumam, which seems to be the most suitable. This is good news, although it's challenging. It's better than fighting with Thin Huthin. The augmented reality enhances data collection into the user's eye, but what martial skill is he planning to install? His request is to continue with this word techniques. Although the holographic images are just illusions, the main character still feels very tense, especially when that shadow is his master. Indeed, it simulates his voice perfectly, even the tone of the foolish disciple. What nonsense is he daring to challenge the martial master? It's so irritating. Nano, turn off all the sound for me please. The master is ranked among the top 10 masters of our sect. No matter what, I definitely can't be a match for him. So the only way is to use the oppressive technique. I thought so, but as soon as I rushed in, I realized all my techniques were easily blocked. Not only did I miss, but I also got hit. Though it's just a simulation, the bleeding feels real. The holographic image of Sumam continued to draw his sword and attack. I was caught off guard, which is normal. The malicious smile of the holographic image revealed itself as it used its third technique, Teep Vu that Lin, from Thesword techniques in midair. The main character was thrown off balance and fell to the ground without being able to react, taking hits one after another. Despite knowing beforehand that I'm absolutely no match for my master, I never thought that I would even be able to withstand a single move from him. The self-power of a supreme master, one of the top 10 masters of the theme Then Ma Jiao, is truly terrifying. Nano is worried again, considering changing the character for the master, but he refused. Why, you foolish disciple, want to continue fighting? Because he doesn't know which move to use. He's thinking of using the supreme technique of the ancestor once, just to test its true power. The holographic image of Sumong laughed loudly and continued to charge at the main character. His eyes showed firm determination, waiting for the right moment. It's unclear who will gain the upper hand. Will bare hands defeat the sword, or will the sword defeat bare hands? Both dodging and retaliating at a dizzying pace, it seems like the main character's displayed technique is very suitable for fighting back against the sword techniques. Continues to exert his internal strength into his two fingers with an unpleasant expression, continuously aiming at the master's vulnerable spots. Now is the time to break through the opponent's defensive line. The moment has come. The sword energy in his hand aims straight at the target, but it seems not as simple as he thought. The main character is immediately knocked back, his body slamming against the wall behind him with a loud thud. Nano immediately halted the holographic image's actions. Even the supreme technique couldn't defeat the master's holographic image. But wait, his gaze began to focus on various positions on the opponent's body. In reality, it's not entirely impossible to hit him. The system has identified the positions where he used his sword energy. Even the final sword technique could have hit him in the middle, but it seems I'm still too shallow. Even though I could use sword techniques to break through my master's defenses, the disparity in our martial arts makes it impossible for me to cause critical damage. I've come to understand that even with knowledge, applying it quickly is not possible. In the next 4 years, I'm determined to complete the Ma Dao Quan's exam 6 times, and within those 4 years, my strength must surpass that of my master. 4 days later, at the training square of the Ma Dao Quan, it's unclear what today is like as there are many martial artists gathered from early morning. Teen Pham feels discouraged because yesterday he couldn't even fight back against 10 holographic images of Huthin. The head instructor loudly inquired about the disciples' rest days. Ma disciples are still in unison in their response. Now I will explain the content of the 3rd exam and distribute the Ma Long Dan. In this exam, 12 people will come together to create a sword formation. The discussion started lively indeed, as Fa Lem said. The condition for these 12 people to create the sword formation is that they must possess the standard martial arts of the Nat Lu lineage. As Lai Ho Men slammed the table, revealing the basic martial arts manual, also known as the Seven Devils Sword Technique, the head instructor continued, stating that if they absorb the Ma Long Dan today and practice the Seven Devils Sword Technique incessantly, they may achieve the standard martial arts of the Nat Lu lineage. Teen Pham, these words don't hold much significance. You can start today. From now until the 3rd exam, within 4 weeks, once the teams successfully construct the sword formation, each team must defeat a martial arts head instructor standing before them, the head instructor announced. The intention is to overcome by defeating one of the martial arts head instructors at the Ma Dao Quan. Many martial artists feel challenged as fighting against supreme masters is quite difficult. Though Pham has heard Lim Fa talk about this, the selection of team members wasn't mentioned. This exam will be different from the previous ones. Each martial artist will have the freedom to act, and you can form your own team. The head instructor explained the process of selecting team leaders and provided martial arts manuals and the Ma Long Dan to everyone. It turns out it's not based on merit. Instead, he points directly to the 17 head instructors, each wearing a card. The condition to become a team leader is to obtain one of these cards within 7 days. This requirement is indeed very challenging for all the martial artists standing here. Ultimately, the key is to obtain the golden cards, which would then make it easier to find team members. In reality, this method not only increases the difficulty of the exam but also serves the purpose of filtering out ordinary martial artists. Ly Ho Men's thoughts seem unconventional. Perhaps he wants to identify the best among the good ones. Although it's said that within 7 days you must obtain the golden cards, if any martial artist is confident, they can try it now. After these words, everyone fell silent. No one dared to speak up. It seems like the head instructor's expectations are high. If someone successfully challenges, it will surely demonstrate their strength and courage. Suddenly, a raised hand catches everyone's attention. The eyes turn to where the martial artist is standing, still as cold as ever. Hoi Ma Tong's mysterious charm. Next is Thin Pham, the seventh disciple of Group 8, and finally, Bok Kai, with the registration number 18. Ly Ho Min eagerly awaits the performance of these two young ones, Thin Pham and Bok Kai. Hu Thin seems hesitant to volunteer, while Bok Kai appears quite strong, having defeated a young master of one of the 6 major sects. You dare his step up, as expected. Very promising, the head instructor remarks. However, he's concerned about Thin Pham because the other 3 won't lend a hand. He intended to arrange it himself, but seeing the head instructor, he follows suit. The martial artist from Group 1 will fight first. As Ho Chin Truong volunteers, he's quickly matched with Du Thuan from Group 12. It seems like Du Thuan, with an infectious confidence, intends to challenge him. Ho Chin Truong doesn't want the head instructor's power to be overly displayed, making other martial artists fearful. Hence, he requests to fight against the 18th martial artist directly. This poses a bit of a problem as Bok Kai is from Du Thuan's group. The martial artist in charge of Group 1 will face Thin Pham. As they bow respectfully to each other, Thin Pham urges Nano to replicate everything meticulously, leaving no detail behind. Ly Ho Min announces loudly to declare the start, and the first one to act is Thin Min. With confidence in his eyes, he demonstrates Nu Huyen Van, which Du Thuan easily predicts and counters with that Ma Kim. Unfortunately, he fails to perceive the uniqueness of my martial arts. He's using that Ma Kim in its 5th form. The protagonist, at first glance, looked adept in his movements, but his aura was not that of an easy opponent. His footsteps were firm, accompanied by agile arms, executing movements with unwavering certainty. His animation skills were like a relentless barrage directed towards his opponent. From the outset, it was evident that his power had already reached its peak. How could the techniques of an ordinary martial artist withstand such prowess? Just by observing his martial arts, one could ascertain that he had already reached the level of a captain. Perhaps one should discard the notion of him being an ordinary martial artist and focus solely on his full combat capabilities. The opponent, now somewhat disoriented, couldn't understand why his supreme technique couldn't stop the protagonist's advances. He sensed that the protagonist's techniques resembled those engraved on ancient stone tablets. Though he dared not confirm, deep down, he suspected the author might have been a sword demon. Both engaged, producing chilling sounds with each clash. While the opponent's aura was strong, it was no match for the protagonist's consecutive gusts of wind, effortlessly neutralizing the attacks of the top martial artist of the Huyen Ma sect. The protagonist himself realized his lack of experience. No matter how hard he tried, he found it difficult to completely block the opponent's strikes. If victory couldn't be determined now, delaying it would only disadvantage him further. Anticipating the opponent's next move, he unleashed his internal energy to its maximum, determined to block the opponent's relentless attacks. He believed this exchange would decide everything. Initially, the opponent attempted to defend, but it seemed futile. As he lunged forward, the Huyen Ma sect's top martial artist unexpectedly lowered his body, leaving the opponent bewildered. How could he transition into a defensive stance so swiftly? The technique resembled those previously used by the protagonist, but its execution was altered instantly, making it difficult for the opponent to respond effectively. Realizing he needed to act quickly, the protagonist attempted to restrain his opponent, but just as he advanced, the opponent effortlessly evaded, leaving the protagonist off balance. In that moment of vulnerability, he was struck by the opponent's sword, throwing him off balance and causing him to fall backward. The outcome of the battle had reached its climax, and the crowd erupted in astonishment. This was the first time someone had defeated the head disciple, indicating the extraordinary level of the protagonist compared to the other martial artists. Ly Ho Min, knowing this technique most proficiently, belonged to Vu Tran Guyan, the head of the Huyen Ma sect. If anyone successfully mastered this technique, they would be considered a martial arts genius. Du Thuan took the initiative to pull out his card from his robe and handed it to the victor, signaling his attainment of the position of team leader from this moment forth in the third assessment. Thin Pham observed this with simplicity, wondering if merely receiving the card was enough, or if he had to demonstrate something more to earn it. Why could each person only obtain one card? Quickly, the second match began between the protagonist and the manager of the first team. Putting aside trivial thoughts, he focused on how to successfully acquire the card. Min Hyu looked at his opponent and felt that this guy was quite capable. not showing any fear. This was natural because the protagonist had overcome all obstacles, making everyone think he couldn't possibly surpass this round. However, putting this guy aside, Min-Hyu was somewhat surprised to see him fall behind. He had initially thought that even the top-ranked candidate couldn't make it through, yet he slipped back. Truly unexpected. But one could only be lucky up to this point, Thien Pham thought. The opponent's determined look confirmed that he would crush the opponent. At a glance, he knew Thien Pham was using the Vu Dao technique. "I ask you to attack first," he said. He understood he had just stepped into the realm of the peak, and compared to the veteran, he still had much to learn. This made him realize that the opponent was underestimating him. In that case, he had to use all his strength. A decisive move to avoid prolonged battles. The attack surpassed Min-Hyu's expectations, stunning him with its speed. The opponent's hand struck directly forward, causing him to recoil due to carelessness, losing his balance and stepping backward. The protagonist pressed on relentlessly, overwhelming his opponent. Min-Hyu had to muster his sevenfold internal strength to fend off the blows. He realized this wasn't internal strength but external skill. Why did he think he could defeat this guy so easily? Feeling increasingly inferior, Min-Hyu decided to give it his all. Thien Pham pushed back, recognized that his opponent's power was not yet perfect, so he was excited. 2 consecutive moves, the 4th and 6th sword of the 7 swords, were unleashed. Although he didn't need to use Nano, the protagonist could see the countless flaws in his opponent's techniques compared to the sword knowledge on the Thon Gok Thatch tablet. It was like child's play, easy to spot the weaknesses, but he didn't bother using the supreme martial arts of the celestial devil ancestor. Min-Hyu, thinking he was about to win, was caught off guard. The protagonist had decided to use all his strength to end the match in the second move, using a basic technique to neutralize all of the opponent's attacks. Although lacking in lethality, this surprised other martial artists. Even the watching head disciples couldn't believe their eyes. Lai Ho Men found it hard to believe that a common technique within the Vu Dao method could break the 7 swords technique of the That Ma Kiem. Min-Hyu grimaced as he was intercepted by a child, calculating to use all his strength to knock down the protagonist. Lai Ho Men felt worried, wondering what the protagonist was thinking, employing such a deadly technique. He didn't have time to defend himself. He only managed to raise his hand in a futile attempt. This resulted in immediate internal injuries as energy invaded his body. Nano quickly began healing the internal organs, but just as he retaliated, the process was gradually underway. The opponent couldn't understand why his attack had no effect. Clearly, he must have suffered internal injuries. Yet why hadn't he been defeated? Panicked, Min-Hyu, lost in thought, created a fatal opening. Although he tried to use his body to block, he was too slow. His right rib cage was immediately broken, causing him to cry out in agony and cough up blood. Everyone witnessing this scene was horrified. Min-Hyu groaned in pain, trying to cling to his opponent, but he paid no attention and collapsed to the ground, only managing to curse the protagonist as a monster. Thus, the second match between the martial artist and the head disciple ended. Ultimately, Thien Pham emerged victorious. No one cheered. Instead, silence prevailed. No one dared to speak up. Hu Thien said something different in Lim's tone, feeling uneasy as that calm two's strength increased. Lai Ho Men understood that Thien Pham was a martial arts genius, on par with the sword demon who created the 7 swords. He regretted conceding his dream of becoming the protagonist's master. Min-Hyu's condition was severe, needing immediate treatment from Bok Trong Min. Preliminary examinations suggested 3 broken ribs, which wasn't surprising, given Thien Pham's previous feats. If the opponent had been aware, he would have been more cautious. The protagonist held the card in his hand, appearing pensive. Finally, his true strength had earned him the honor of being the second team leader. Looking at the martial artists, the head disciple silently vowed not to underestimate them. As long as they had talent and strong capabilities, they could surpass these foolish head disciples. The only concern was losing face if his disciple were defeated without realizing that the sect had created successors. Criticizing himself for hastily choosing martial artist number 18 as his opponent, he failed to recognize the genius who selected him for a remarkable battle. Due to much gossip and chatter, Lai Ho Men urged, "Hurry up. Let's finish the last battle so we can rest early." Bak Kai strode out confidently to greet the head grandmaster. Many head disciples whispered to each other, "If he loses again this time, he might lose the right to teach these kids." Below, the other martial artists, numbering up to 50, wondered if participant number 18 would create another miracle this time. His talent is unquestionable. I hope the head grandmaster takes him as his disciple. You're humble and respectful. Huyen Le, I'll teach you everything I know, he said with a smile. After exchanging greetings, both returned to their defensive stances. Ho Chin Truong emanated a powerful aura. Just a look in his eyes instilled fear. Bak Kai couldn't believe this was the same person who had spoken so casually with him earlier. Nevertheless, no matter what, he wouldn't regret dueling with him. Having finished his thoughts, he swiftly charged towards the head grandmaster to attack. First, Thien Pham meticulously replayed all of his actions to later incorporate them into his training. Regarding Thien Min's actions during the fight, he had already analyzed them all to prepare for potential clashes and apply theoretical knowledge and practice. He had devised several moves to counter the martial artist's techniques. Although this group was fast, with his experience, he could easily dodge all their attacks. Why couldn't Bak Kai touch his opponent's body? Quickly, lower your back foot, the head grandmaster instructed him. This confused the martial artist, who became distracted as he both attacked and received guidance from the head grandmaster. His foot touched the opponent's palm straight into Ho Chin Truong's stomach, then spun around on the pivot, causing him to notice. This made his opponent curious, quickly turning around. Bak Kai continued with more strikes, accompanied by a plethora of internal force. Other martial artists were astonished as someone had finally managed to hit the head grandmaster, though it didn't seem quite right. Bak Kai's foot had struck the master's sword, and only now did he show signs of pain due to carelessness. His body was pushed backward, his legs bleeding and throbbing so much he couldn't lift them. Unexpectedly, in that moment, the head grandmaster managed to unleash his sword energy. It was truly a supreme skill. You should use your techniques wisely. If you're injured like this, what will you do? Bak Kai understood that the head grandmaster standing before him had much greater power than the two ordinary head disciples. Although with his current strength, he knew this was illogical. He only thought this far. As he was planning his next move to determine victory or defeat, Ho Chin Truong seemed very pleased with the efforts of martial artist number 18. Despite being severely injured in his lower leg, he showed resilience, and Bak Kai didn't hesitate to continue. Even without his right leg, he still had his left, so he remained confident. Headmaster rushed forward eagerly to confront, thinking his opponent was already defeated, so there was no need to worry. He flew towards Bak Kai, who had lowered himself, causing the head grandmaster to be surprised. With just a quick glance, he knew this was just a bait. Bak Kai again used the same technique as before, despite his continuous bleeding wounds diminishing his power slightly. This kid is quite capable. Unfortunately, he's still inexperienced. Oh well, this is the end, thought the head grandmaster. Ho Chin Truong, unsure of where it came from, was suddenly flung forward by the martial artist. Though not using sword energy, it was enough to knock him back, signaling the end of the match. It was regrettable for Bak Kai, with his talent, to face such a formidable opponent. Many observers understood that the number 1 and number 7 martial artists were monsters capable of defeating the two head disciples. Bak Kai, feeling breathless and coughing up blood, understood this. Though defeated, he was fortunate that the opponent spared him. The protagonist held the card in his hand, appearing pensive. Finally, his true strength had earned him the honor of being the second team leader. Looking at the martial artists, the head disciples silently vowed not to underestimate them. As long as they had talent and strong capabilities, they could surpass these foolish head disciples. The only concern was losing face if his disciple were defeated without realizing that the sect had created successors. Criticizing himself for hastily choosing martial artist number 18 as his opponent, he failed to recognize the genius who selected him for a remarkable battle. Due to much gossip and chatter, Lai Hong Min urged, "Hurry up, let's finish the last battle so we can rest early." Bak Kai strode out confidently to greet the head grandmaster. Many head disciples whispered to each other, "If he loses again this time, he might lose the right to teach these kids." Below, the other martial artists, numbering up to 50, wondered if participant number 18 would create another miracle this time. His talent is unquestionable. I hope the head grandmaster takes him as his disciple. You're humble and respectful. Huinle, I'll teach you everything I know, he said with a smile. After exchanging greetings, both returned to their defensive stances. Ho Chin Truong emanated a powerful aura. Just a look at his eyes instilled fear. Bak Kai couldn't believe this was the same person who had spoken so casually with him earlier. Nevertheless, no matter what, he wouldn't regret dueling with him. Having finished his thoughts, he swiftly charged towards the head grandmaster to attack. First, Thien Pham meticulously replayed all of his actions to later incorporate them into his training. Regarding Thien Min's actions during the fight, he had already analyzed them all to prepare for potential clashes and apply theoretical knowledge in practice. He had devised several moves to counter the martial artist's techniques. Although this group was fast, with his experience, he could easily dodge all their attacks. Why couldn't Bak Kai touch his opponent's body? Quickly, lower your back foot, the head grandmaster instructed him. This confused the martial artist, who became distracted as he both attacked and received guidance from the head grandmaster. His foot touched the opponent's palm straight into Ho Chin Truong's stomach, then spun around on the pivot, causing him to notice. This made his opponent curious. Quickly turning around, Bak Kai continued with more strikes, accompanied by a plethora of internal force. Other martial artists were astonished as someone had finally managed to hit the head grandmaster, though it didn't seem quite right. Bak Kai's foot had struck the master's sword, and only now did he show signs of pain due to carelessness. His body was pushed backward, his legs bleeding and throbbing so much he couldn't lift them. Unexpectedly, in that moment, the head grandmaster managed to unleash his sword energy. It was truly a supreme skill. You should use your techniques wisely. If you're injured like this, what will you do? Bak Kai understood that the head grandmaster standing before him had much greater power than the two ordinary head disciples. Although with his current strength, he knew this was illogical. He only thought this far, as he was planning his next move to determine victory or defeat. Ho Chin Truong seemed very pleased with the efforts of martial artist number 18. Despite being severely injured in his lower leg, he showed resilience, and Bak Kai didn't hesitate to continue. Even without his right leg, he still had his left, so he remained confident. Headmaster rushed forward eagerly to confront, thinking his opponent was already defeated, so there was no need to worry. He flew towards Bak Kai, who had lowered himself, causing the head grandmaster to be surprised. With just a quick glance, he knew this was just a bait. Bak Kai again used the same technique as before, despite his continuous bleeding wounds diminishing his power slightly. This kid is quite capable. Unfortunately, he's still inexperienced. Oh well, this is the end, thought the head grandmaster. Ho Chin Truong, unsure of where it came from, was suddenly flung forward by the martial artist. Though not using sword energy, it was enough to knock him back, signaling the end of the match. It was regrettable for Bak Kai, with his talent, to face such a formidable opponent. Many observers understood that the number 1 and number 7 martial artists were monsters capable of defeating the two head disciples. Bak Kai, feeling breathless and coughing up blood, understood this. Though defeated, he was fortunate that the opponent spared him. As they left, Ko Vuong Kat approached, acknowledging his earlier hesitation, but emphasizing the need to recruit other martial artists as lieutenants for 7th Young Master. While they had won the title of martial arts leader, concerns about the future lingered. Thien Pham understood the significance of the title and its potential hidden intentions. Ko Vuong Kat reminded them that compared to the established sects, their power was still budding. Assuming the role of lieutenants was a responsibility they couldn't overlook. Unaware of the change in training location, Ko Vuong Kat suggested sending messages for coordination. Upon learning that 7th Young Master trained elsewhere, he expressed surprise, but determined to join him there swiftly. With the conclusion of the discussion, he returned to his usual training spot. Currently, the protagonist had reached the pinnacle of inner strength, with 60 years of experience in adjusting sword and knife energies. Grateful for the success achieved, he silently thanked Nano for its contribution. Nano readily agreed, prioritizing the owner's efforts over its own appearance. Quickly show me the playback of Bak Kai's recent decisive battle, he commanded. Nano promptly initiated the reality enhancement mode to replay the fight. As it looped through, he stopped at the moment where Bak Kai took a hit. Zoom in on the image, focusing on the areas 7th Guild Master wants to see, he instructed. Nano zoomed in closely, revealing the pale complexion of Bok Kai, bloodshot eyes, and bloodstains around the neck. I couldn't have guessed wrong, he murmured. At the headquarters of the Hong Dik Vi sect, memories of the morning's battle flooded back. The sheer power displayed by this individual far surpassed that of ordinary martial artists. It seemed like he had also reached the pinnacle of mastery. If he relied solely on the seven-demon sword, he might not be a match, though his martial arts weren't as formidable as sword techniques. The seventh martial artist's use of wind techniques was incredible. Even after only 4 hours, he seemed to grasp the essence of the seven-demon sword. He firmly believed that the little leader of the knife demon sect was no less powerful than the others. That's enough. We should stop here, Thien Hu Thien said softly, expressing gratitude tinged with regret. Then Hong Dik Vi also removed his martial arts badge. From now on, you have the authority to recruit members. I hope to hear good news in the future. It turned out that the seventh martial artist hadn't fully displayed his abilities in the morning, perhaps intentionally hiding his strength. Who should I challenge next? He pondered. Meanwhile, Bok Kai was enjoying his meal alone in the cafeteria when Thien Kong Van approached. The leader of the Sword Demon sect was pleased with the performance of the 18th martial artist. However, mentioning this seemed to anger Bok Kai. Can't you see I'm eating? He snapped. Despite his displeasure, Thien Kong Van spoke gently, acknowledging the martial artist's prowess. He suspected that Bok Kai had just reached the pinnacle of mastery. Although the latter remained indifferent, Thien Kong Van's words caught his attention. If I don't tell you now, you might lose your life later, he warned. Bok Kai looked up from his meal to see Seventh Young Master. You're even more arrogant than the two before, Seventh Young Master remarked. Although not the junior sect leader of the 6 great sects, he wondered how Bok Kai thought he could recruit him. Sensing some misunderstanding, Bok Kai retorted, I'm not threatening you. I'm just saying I'm dying. That's not a threat, is it? Seventh Young Master clarified. You've been poisoned. Bok Kai was confused. What are you talking about? He asked. Recalling the battle earlier, he realized Seventh Young Master was referring to the paleness and redness he experienced then. This made Bok Kai reconsider. As the leader of the 12th sect, he always had to be vigilant against members of the Poison Demon sect. However, he couldn't understand why Seventh Young Master would mention this. Even if he were truly poisoned, what did it have to do with him? After pondering, he apologized for the misunderstanding, assuming Seventh Young Master was paying his respects. Why did I think you were paying your respects? He wondered. He apologized again, realizing his mistake. You should eat together for fun, Seventh Young Master suggested.